Lore Boys here. The internet's number one fake history podcast, back from bubbling in the axolotl tank to bring you more Dune lore. Welcome to the show, new listeners, old listeners. I'm your host, Ethan Palmer. With me, as always, James and Peter. James and Peter, say hi.
Hey.
I own an axolotl tank. Hello. You keep calling it out as though I should feel shame for these things.
Right?
These Aztec monsters who did not whisper into my dreams during the eclipse.
I guess I'll start by saying this is Dune lore. No spoilers for any of the movies. We're talking about stuff that happened hundreds and thousands of years before the movies take place. It's really just world building. So if you're new to the show, you're interested, don't fear that we're going to spoil stuff for you, but it will actually fill in some of the blanks on like why Paul Jihad not have Alexa?
Yeah, like why does he have a force field, but there's
Google
no
Assistant.
like, yeah, exactly. He never says hey Siri.
Yeah. Hey Google, why Paul Muad'Dib hate you?
Yeah, exactly. Alexa, explain to me the cutest desert rat.
Point of order about your axolotl tanks. We did receive a correction on the last episode about the axolotl tanks.
Oh,
I'm going to say, I don't know why I read axolotl tank in a 700-page, extremely esoteric world-building encyclopedia and didn't think to myself that it's maybe more than a special little aquarium like Pete has. But like, I don't know why I read that and said like, yeah, it's probably just an axolotl tank is what they're talking about.
Because a friend of the show, Oren, had explained to me that he was like, oh, you'd find it cool. They have a thing called the axolotl tank, which is like from what he said, like a mutation chamber.
Yeah,
which was relevant to my interests, owning two of the horrible animals myself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I always pictured it as like advanced science, not just an aquarium.
No, I know, yeah. Like I knew there was something more to it than just that, but well, I think we just called it out as that. And I ended up looking into it. I thought it was really cool. Wrote a whole thing for us to discuss on the bonus, and then we just ended up talking about the moon and the sun on the bonus and why you shouldn't take pictures of the moon. So if you want to check that out, it's on Patreon, patreon.com/theloreboys.
Hell yeah, dude, that call to action has been getting woven in to your episodes so discreetly these days that
what's really discreet is when you call it out like that.
I love it. I love it.
So axolotl tank in the Duneverse refers to a particular type of vat which the Bene Tleilax use to create clones of human cadavers. So yes, you're right. Maybe I'll do a bonus episode about it someday, but not today because again, we talked about the moon. It was just the 2024 total solar eclipse for us.
We were afraid.
We saw the sun go out, and then there was earthquakes like in New York yesterday and in Boston the day before. Yep. And if we didn't have all this good internet to tell us what's what, we would think the world might be ending.
But you know who was protected from all of that? Our patrons. Pete,
Absolutely.
You want to mention our patrons this week?
Oh boy, do we have a
great
spread.
The safe and warm bosom of the Lore Boys.
Nestle in here.
The lore bosom.
Pilgrims.
Welcome to the Lore bosom.
I'm not going to go into the order that which they joined this time, only because we have Hokarno, Riley McLennan, Steve Z, long time, very active.
Yeah.
And then Mr.
Steve.
President, friend of the show, Ronald Reagan. We're sorry about the way we talked about your wife, but
it's okay, you boys. I just like the way that you talk about Dune.
Yeah. I'm excited for this
topic. Thank you, everybody.
I feel like I actually know a little bit about it this time, and I'm excited to see what
Jamie's ready to actually push the bridge of his glasses up into his face and hit me with it.
Yeah, and break the stem in half and then not have glasses for another 2 months.
Yeah, you had me like listening to Dune lore and stuff while playing Path of Exile.
Oh,
so
beautiful.
It's actually it's been sinking in.
Well, just pull up Path of Exile, dude. Sit back. Let me take you on a ride.
I've been waiting for permission to just be able to get some game time in while we're doing these.
Right?
So, yeah.
It's a gaming podcast. It's what the people want.
I think I did it one time.
You were cued into WoW on one of the episodes.
I remember because this fucker was killing me in Duskwood and body camping me, and he wouldn't let me get up. And I was like, if I just record the podcast and come back, he'll be gone. But I couldn't let it go. So every time I was just kind of playing crying out of the corner of my eye and running back to my body and trying to save myself. But he was just and he was shit talking me in the fucking server Discord too. Like, UNICEF, this is what you get for camping low levels. Oh, fuck you. Anyways, I had.
It sounds like he had your ass dead to rights.
He did have my ass. It was embarrassing.
But without machines, he wouldn't have had your ass. He would have had to have tried to get your ass in a different way.
Absolutely.
So our story begins in the Dune universe in 230 before Guild. So we're in the negative numbers still.
Yeah. And this was explained in the last episode, just for context, if this is your first episode. The Guild calendar restarts like 13,000 years after our calendar does, right? So just always add on more to wherever.
Yeah, like even more than
time,
that,
right?
Yeah, it's obviously
the last time we kind of agreed. Far future, don't sweat your pretty little head about it too much. Yeah. It's super far in the future. Yeah,
it's been brought up to me multiple times recently, though. Is just like, if you want to know where you are on the calendar, here you go, like sort of thing, just in case.
There's a timeline in the encyclopedia that you can go look at. It's I think about 20,000 years from the start of the calendar to 0, and then I think we're 11,000 years ish is where Paul Muad'Dib then the stories take place. Yeah. Don't quote me on that. I didn't look at the timeline at all when doing this one. I looked at it a fair amount when I did the last one, which was a month ago or so. So we're on the 9th planet of the system, Eridani A. It's a small planet known as Komos. It's a vassal state to its neighbor Rachis, whose army was bigger than the entire population of Komos. So we have a province planet that is a tributary to this other planet, Rachis.
They can take them.
And well, Komos is, like I said, the army of Rachis is bigger than the entire population of Komos, which was like listed as like 500 million or something like that. So like less than a Earth planet.
Is that our situation as Canada next to the States? It feels like it could be. Like,
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I don't think they have 30 million people in their army, do they? There's no way.
Not.
That's like 10% of their population. That's way too much. 1 in 10 Americans is in the army.
Yeah,
I don't think
1 in 10 Americans has a gun and is ready to kill a Canadian. I think
it's way more than 1 in 10.
if you count voluntary Canadian sellers, sides, then yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Kanaka sides, then absolutely. There's probably 300 billion or 300 million, probably the entire population.
I feel like it's more than 1 in 10 because it's more than 1 in 10. I think in Canada. Like,
well, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, the average person owns 2 somehow.
Just to be comparative, so we can feel like the province next to the military force. Absolutely. At least 1 in 10 would be willing to take a pot shot at Peter.
As Quebecers, we are the whatever. We're the 5 out of 30 that are of Frenchmen against the evil and horrid English-speaking Canadians.
Yeah,
right?
of course,
sure.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that. There will probably actually, like as you're saying, and I'm like, there's going to be a few comparisons that you can make. You're going to be able to continue that metaphor, I think.
Quebec or the gun thing.
Jamie's neighbor, like Komos being Canada.
What you said about the Quebec thing didn't really connect at all, and it didn't make much sense.
No, it was stupid and dumb, honestly. that was just bad and probably like detrimental to the podcast as a whole. But whatever, go off, King.
Quebec Jihad, dude.
Komos was an agri-planet known for its wheat and livestock output. I tried to do a comparison of like how much wheat they generate to how much wheat Earth generates. It seems like they generate a lot more, especially for having a much smaller population, but it's hard to figure out these numbers and convert them the right way sometimes.
How do you have a bigger Saskatchewan on the planet? The continents are probably different, right?
I don't know.
Rachis, for the most part, left Komos alone, except for tithing. The Rachis did not impress much on those of Komos. Language, religion, even legal systems and stuff like that was not foisted on Komos. And the Rachis considered the exploitation of the Komos people to be gentle and considerate. So, you ask the average citizen, how do you feel about the occupation of Komos? And the average Rachis citizen would be like, well, we're making their lives better. We're doing good things for them, right?
Yeah.
That we ship bread back to them at a fair price.
Yeah, exactly. A fair markup, right? Unappointed.
We paid for the gas.
Yeah. Oh, so Komos was forbidden from having space vessels of any kind. Rachis obviously maintains a rather sizable stellar army of their own. An appointed planetary governor known as an exarch lived on Komos with a small garrison. Theory The theory is that the people of Komos were not controlled with force; they were merely controlled with the threat of force. They don't have a space force. They're facing a much larger army than anything that they could muster, probably. So that's all that it takes to be like, yep, you guys ship your wheat to us so we can make bread and sell it to you.
Nice, yeah. We got a clothesline set up. We'll just send the bread. Don't think about leaving.
Yeah. The responsibility. Well, don't think about leaving. You literally don't have spaceships, so how could you?
Yeah.
The responsibilities of the Exarch were few but specific. There's two essentially. Number one, with a bullet, ensure the tribute. Make sure we're getting our grain.
Yeah.
Number two, keep the peace. So don't rock the boat. Just make sure the grain keeps coming, basically.
Yeah, but if you gotta like give a couple bruises to get the bread on time, that's fine.
If you gotta kill a couple Canadians to make sure the bread is made on time, then by all means.
You got it.
Don't rock the boat. We confiscated their boats. It's just an expression.
Yeah. The CIA would have no problem with drowning a Canadian fisherman. Drowning any fisherman of any nationality. Truly, they are.
If I made them $1.
Yeah. They're whatever the opposite of a doctor is. They're the parallel to Doctors Without Borders, but
like
the
a murderer.
A murderer without borders is the CIA.
Just go Canadian clubbing.
Love me some rye whiskey.
Yeah, right.
To the Rashis, nothing was more important than the flow of food from Komos, as at this point in their history, Rashis produced no food themselves. So that's why it's like so important they get their grain, because they do not produce food on Rashis.
Right.
A quote. And this is from the Dune Encyclopedia, which compilation of essays written by Herbert. In fact, had it not been for the restraint Rashis showed in their relations with the province, the revolt which finally overcame Rashis would likely have occurred earlier. But the limited presence of Rashis in the lives of the Comans helped to make the burden of their servitude more bearable. Most of the population had no contact whatsoever with the government of Rashis unless they accompanied the tribute convoys into one of the district capitals after the harvest. Even during the tribute collection, most of the population remained at home on ranch or farm. The Comans were obdurately rural. Since the only state the Comans knew was Rashis, they recognized no state. The most important political unit on Komos was also the chief social unit, the family. So the Comans don't really have like an organized government. They kind of just like recognize that the Rashis are the government and accept that at face value. Yes, you had your hand up.
What's the word that you said before? Rural?
Obdurately, it means like, it's kind of like obstinately. It's like super stubborn. Like absolutely refuse. Like they're rural and they're like, we're farmers. My pa was a farmer. His pa was a farmer. I'm gonna be a farmer. My son's gonna be a farmer.
Okay.
Basically.
Okay. And they only date the farmers only. They don't go on Hinge.
There is no Hinge, believe it or not. There's no Tinder. There's no Bumble. There's only farmers only.
Well, they don't even.
That's the only farmers only.
The feds have Hinge, but I mean, the
Rashis have Hinge for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Do they have an Only Farms?
They all do.
Yeah. It's just like two caked up buns right there of bread. Like,
oh hell yeah, brother! What are you doing?
Just like a thong like stretched over one of those big like squashes, basically.
They're pretty like fiercely like rural though, so they probably don't have PCs. So they're accessing it. It's just like it's like a mail-in program. Onlyfarms.com.
Yeah.
They'll send you pictures of buns.
Right. And this whole story, like, not to spoil or whatever, is like how we get no AI.
Yeah. So
in the future of Dune, right?
It is important to I guess it's good to call out now. Like this is the seeds of that, right? That this is like a fiercely not fully Luddite civilization, I guess, and like even calling them a civilization is a little weird because they're very not organized. They operate in tribes. There are these like principal cities, which the district capitals, as I mentioned, which are like managed and governed by the Rashis, and we'll talk about one of the managers of those, the logistos as they're called, of one of those cities or those districts essentially. But like all the urban hubs are like Rashis footholds, and all the Comans live in the countryside and produce wheat. Right. That's all they do basically.
This is and the story of not having AI helps really stick Herbert's like a fantasy future stick out from other things, right? That humans are have the capacity to grow to be as powerful as any robot or whatever.
Yeah, and honestly, as a like, if I were an author, it must be so goddamn hard to write like a super smart computer. Like they're so smart computers, they could do anything. they're so smart. How do I write a smart computer? And how does like the computer not just solve all the problems in the story for you? You know what I mean? Like
I
in
mean,
a fraction of a
also,
second.
it can't be easy to write what a mentat ends up becoming in 1964, like what basically like a human computer who can like reprogram themselves to be more logical rather than emotional and like take drugs to like fucking zoom them up. I actually just took a nap before the podcast.
You're all zoomed up.
Listening to Mentats lore, and so I did my homework, guys.
You're all zoomed up right now.
Yeah,
Jamie took his spice today.
I was
I
thinking
took my spice
as like the way it would look from orbit, because obviously we had a very celestial day or a celestial afternoon, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would be very interesting if the planet itself was just all wheat fields, but kind of still looked like a fruit, in which like the space station with all its roads leading out were kind of like the seams that go through a gourd sort of thing. I don't know. I was just I briefly there for like a couple of minutes. I was overwhelmingly stoned and
Pete took his spice. He's not looking as well.
We've talked about it in like distant past episodes, but like you can imagine, like, since most people brush their teeth in the morning, that as the sun's coming up, there's just a wave of humans around the earth constantly brushing their teeth.
It never stops.
More so than other people.
Over the Pacific, it stops. But
I've heard like before bed.
There's islands there.
That's when most.
Not many though. It's mostly empty, mostly water. The Pacific Ocean. If I'm being honest,
I've heard a lot of couples have sex at night sometimes, so you can think of it that way too. The sun goes down, and there's just a bunch of humans
brushing my teeth during sex. Absolutely,
a bunch of humans fucking in
money.
a wave, just around the world. Like just the clap cheeks ratio goes up at a certain hour around the world. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
blocks out the sun.
The cheeks clapped per square inch is a higher density, and where the sun meets the shadow.
Well, I mean, just fuckable land, right?
I don't like the per square inch metric because I kind of it doesn't report well on my side. But
you do have a very square penis, famously. So
just not a lot of inches. Yeah.
Well, it's the exact same amount of inches, but like in a cube instead of
in like a weird box, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like when you go and you buy like you can get every element in the periodic table. I just have a really condensed inch by inch.
During the periodic table is gross. Actually,
if you've ever been to a fancy, if you've ever been to a party where there's somebody walking around with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, and on that tray there's little cubes of cheese with a toothpick in them. If you just picture that toothpick in Jamie's dick, it's like 1-to-1, same thing.
Oof. Yeah.
Well, you're into that, aren't you?
The toothpick is rough one.
Why make it wood? If you're gonna sound, and God bless, we're not here to kink shame. Why use something that could splinter? That feels wrong.
All of a sudden, I want to learn more about this farming.
Well, you brought it up. You want to talk about sex. You want to talk about toothpaste.
I pulled out. Yeah,
we pulled out the cube.
Yeah, this is why you have a kid and I don't. I pull out.
Fiercely patriarchal society, with fathers retaining control of the lives of their children until that father dies. They're like, Herbert goes out of his way to still say there's still some power that women retain in the familial unit. And like, it definitely is true, but it's so written through the lens of like the 50s. They enjoyed no legal status. Women on Komos could not appear in court, could not inherit without a guardian there to chaperone them. Herbert does go out of his way to say, like, but they still held influence in society. And again, it is true. It's just like, why do you even like make that the thing then? Just make them normal human people. You can imagine far future technology. You can imagine a world with or without AI, but you cannot imagine a world where women just have normal rights. Right?
That is out of this.
It's so funny to like write himself backwards from the excuse of them being normal in society to just be like, this sci-fi needs rules, actually. So that's why.
Yeah, trad wives make this universe great, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
We need them.
No AI.
So the religion of Komos was controlled by priestesses. So the Pope got tits in the Duneverse, or on Komos at the very least.
Whoa! Imagine that car all steamed up, the windows, the handprint. Oh, baby.
Well, there's your art, Peter.
Well,
Pope-mobile.
hot farmer Pope.
hot farmer Pope with,
Jesus, if we ever wanted to get ourselves like Salman Rushdie and like stabbed in the eye, it would be like the jihadi fucking steamy farmer Pope, which I am not putting on the internet.
Don't draw that. Yeah, don't draw that.
same joke, but the other guy. There you go.
Yeah.
Now we're canceled.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well.
So the religion of Komos was controlled by priestesses. As such, the religious life of the family was controlled by the matriarch of the family. And religion is, again, it's tribes here. There is no like formal government. So like religion actually plays a very important role in people's lives. So again,
I mean, a lot of Dune is like implanted religious prophecy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it is. I don't want to get political. He may have had an opinion about like religious institutions, fucking manipulating people.
The guy who wrote
for
Jihad
centuries
700 times in his book. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like maybe the women who like influenced the creation of the false prophet that ruined Arrakis.
Yeah.
And
maybe he had some opinions about the Catholic Church.
apparently, like Tolkien didn't like Dune, probably because it didn't
very
have
Catholic. Yeah,
yeah, it didn't have much of a religious impact. But I did like the way, I don't know if it happens in the book, and I think I mentioned this the last time, but in Dune, they kind of the believers of Muad'Dib were kind of cringe because anything he would do, he would trip over his feet, and they'd be like, "Muad'Dib, this was meant to be."
Yeah,
he tripped over
absolutely.
his feet. This was supposed to happen. And then also the doubters were kind of cringe because they would just doubt no matter what too. So you can kind of see how they're making fun of both sides in the movie, or at least that's how I felt.
It's commentary on religion, I think, from Denis Villeneuve, right? But
yeah.
Because we've made fun of it in the past of like, the Reddit atheist is as cringe, I guess, as like the screaming fundamentalist weirdo in a megachurch, right?
Yeah. It's all cringe all the way down.
Yeah, this whole place is cringe, dude.
Nisan al-Gaib.
Religious rites on Komos, from birth to death, centered around the worship of the goddess Kubebe. She was a maternal goddess regarded as the source of all life, animal and plant. Here's a quote for you guys. In common with similar religion, her followers believe that each year the world died as a result of the absence of their goddess. While explanations for this departure might vary from region to region, the result was constant, the death of the world. This death explained the passage of the seasons and the infertility of fall and winter. As Kubebe's absence killed their planet, only her return could resurrect it. To ensure that return, even the most serious rituals of mourning, cleansing, reinvigoration, and finally rejoicing became a yearly cycle. These rituals were directed by a tribe's chief priestess, who was seen as the link between the goddess and the Comans. So again, talking about the importance of the role of women in the society, and because the main character is a woman that we're going to be talking about.
But also, it's fascinating that a lot of Dune really is just religious institutions manipulating every single thing it comes into contact with for centuries, in which they have like deified the seasons instead of just saying that the planet goes around the sun they're like orbiting. So, it's like no, the goddess is the portents autumn and everything dies, right? It's
funny you mentioned that. Like, yeah, there is absolutely like we were just saying, religion is very important to Herbert, and like in his writing and it's talking about the institutions.
Yeah,
the encyclopedia does call out like they understand that the seasons are dictated by like the position of the planet around the sun at a given time of the year, but they choose to believe that Kubebe chose to do that and could change the orbit of the planet if she wanted to, kind of thing, So
I see. Okay.
It is
we saw an eclipse today. If we were simple farm folk, we could be like, that couldn't just happen like the way it did, right? No, there's got to be a Kubebe who's been behind this all. But
so I don't want to oversell how backwater they are, like simple farm folk, but they do see like spacemen come and collect the wheat in their fancy space.
Yeah, they do have
and,
they have to deliver grain to a spaceport, right?
It is called out that like most Comans probably never see a Rashis in their lifetime, just like living in the pastures, but like they probably. I kind of joked about them not having computers. They probably have a computer in their house, like each of them. They probably have telephones. Like they're modern enough. Probably it's never.
It's all wheat based.
I guess I'm saying Lore Boy's canon. I guess I'm correcting you on something that I just have my own mind canon for. So
they're like playing the stock markets. There's one stock and it's wheat.
I mean, but it's like STALK, right? So like when the stock goes up, it's just corn getting big, and they're just oh, rich people are so happy.
Yeah, it's springtime. You know what that means? Bye, bye, bye.
Yeah, the stock market is just measuring how high the plants are on average this year. It's
it's not just religious institutions, of course. It is also, we do have the Illuminati. The priestesses of the order were chosen young and given their early schooling at schools all over the planet, but there was a lone institution where they received their final instruction, an introduction into the training of the Bene Gesserit. So, like the cabal has their hooks in here, their claws in here, like as they do everywhere, right? For the uninitiated, and it does deserve an episode of its own. We will do one eventually. The Bene Gesserit is a very ancient secret order of women capable of group consciousness and a whole bunch of other things. It's the Mentats to a large extent as well. Especially a cabal of witches, a cabal of witches in the Dune universe. They are an incredibly powerful all-girl power Illuminati with fingers in absolutely every pie in just about every story in the universe, and this one's not going to be any exception.
Yeah, you see them in the movies already, trifling. And then there's like some prophecy that they're going to have a male Bene Gesserit that's the best Bene Gesserit of them all or something. Yeah. And we think it might be Paul, and that's kind of where we're at in the story right now.
Well, it's not supposed to be Paul.
I don't remember how the movie starts. I know in the book it's like very explicit. Jessica Atreides, wife of Leto Atreides and Paul's mother, was explicitly told to have a girl because the Bene Gesserit have such control over their bodies they can make the sex of their baby, and they were told to make a girl so that the House Atreides would have a future Bene Gesserit when Jessica moves on. They would have a Bene Gesserit in the house, which would be controlling Arrakis. So she was to have a girl, and she instead, because of this prophecy to have a boy, chose to have a boy.
Yeah,
and so she defied the order of the Bene Gesserit to have.
But even the Bene Gesserit that comes to meet at the beginning of that book is like,
Reverend Mother.
Whoa, he just like read my intentions, and he's only like 12 or however old he is, right? He's like
15, I think.
15,
at the beginning of the book,
So like he's a boy, and he does have an exceptional powers. That's why I expected him to be the prophet, the prophesized big boy
Haderach or
Bene Gesserit. Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm not that far in. I'm sure the answer's already out there, but no spoilers, I guess. Yeah.
We will do a Bene Gesserit episode at one point.
Hell yeah!
All Common priestesses are qualified card-carrying members of the Bene Gesserit. Every single one who is a Common priestess, because they all graduate from the same finishing school, and that finishing school is a Bene Gesserit psyop.
Okay.
It's probable, that all head priestesses were of high rank, possibly even Reverend Mothers, the woman whom you're referencing from the start of the original Dune book.
Right.
I know that none of this means much for anyone who doesn't know who the Bene Gesserit are, but when we do that episode, it will.
Yeah.
It was on this planet, overseen by the Common priestesses, that Jihad was born in the year 230 before Guild. She was singled out pretty early, chosen to be trained as a priestess and to receive all the Bene Gesserit tricks that came with it. Rather than choosing to become a priestess once her training was complete, however, Jihad instead marries one Thethir Butler, the Logistos of Xania, one of the 10 administrative districts on Komos.
Oh, that name rings a bell. Probably in the title. Butler?
Yeah. She becomes, we don't know, but becomes Jihad Butler.
And if I was going to write something called BattleTech, I would probably steal that exact same naming convention for my own Jihad that I was going to write in.
Right. So she receives the priestess training, but does not become a Common priestess. She instead becomes essentially a political figure, like the first lady of this Logistos. Whether she does that of her own volition or at the behest of the Bene Gesserit, we do not know. So, Loreboy's canon, she was probably told by the Bene Gesserit, position yourself into a position of power, right?
Yeah, because even in the films, which have they're trimmed down a little bit, just because it has to be 3 hours long instead of a 700-page book. Even then, a lot of the Bene Gesserit wilings behind the scene, you get a lot absolutely. Of why Lady Jessica is wrong in their eyes when the Leia Seydoux one has sex on the black and white planet, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but one of the principal strictures of the Bene Gesserit is to not draw attention to the Bene Gesserit, and like you cannot be the president as a Bene Gesserit. Like you are not allowed to be president. You can be the first lady and working in the shadows, but you cannot be like the primary person on the forefront. Essentially,
it's not even
you're the lobbyist. You're the Raytheon guy.
Exactly.
It's not even a Bene Gesserit rule. It's just they don't want women presidents.
Right. The secret order of all powerful women witches don't want women president.
They know it's a bad idea.
It's like, listen, I can control people with my voice. No one would believe a woman president. Let's do
it. We'll see. Beyond the office of... Oh, sorry. Here's a quote for you guys, just explaining the logistos.
So wait, I was just thinking the power of the voice. Imagine our own presidents had like the power of the voice. Like, you remember that clip that was going around of AOC being like, "Do not come," and then
no,
Trump
it's not AOC. It's fucking...
Or
it's Kamala Harris.
Oh, it's Kamala Harris.
It's a foreign country. It's okay.
And then Donald Trump being like, "Come," or "I'm gonna come."
Yeah.
Imagine Donald Trump just making the whole country come on voice command.
I do now. Actually.
2024. You never know. It might happen.
November, dude. Get your nuts ready.
My nuts are quaking.
Oh, it's the Butlerian Jihad. That's what he's gonna call it.
The voice, man.
Here's a quote. I love Howie Mandel. So here's a quote for you guys, just explaining logistos. Beyond the office of Exarch, the planet was divided into 10 administrative districts, whose bureaucratic chiefs were called the logistoi. Each logistos was chosen from the population of the administrative district he directed. His chief responsibility was to provide the central government in Pylos, the capital city of Komos, with accurate estimates of the harvest of his district each year, and to oversee the collection of the tribute when the harvest was in. So these are Comans, but they they're bureaucrats working for the Rishis, essentially. So they're living in the major cities, working for the Rishis, but are native Comans born.
Okay,
I think typically. Anyway, there's probably exceptions, right? But
yeah,
especially early on. In 205 before Guild, the same year she was married, Jahan was rushed to the capital of Pylos to the hospital there. She was going into labor. Both Jahan and Thetir were eager for the birth. As far as the Komos culture was concerned, they were on the older side for a baby, both having been preoccupied with careers up until now.
Ugh, millennials.
There's maybe some complications, or maybe this was standard practice on Komos, but on arriving at the hospital, Jahan was anesthetized to undergo a surgical birth. So I don't know if it doesn't say if it's like everyone gets a C-section or just like there was something that happened with hers.
What's the name of the people again? The Comans? A Coman section.
Yeah. They put her into a Coman.
A Coman. Yeah.
I just keep imagining like the
they're not women, they're co-men.
We're co-manning this relationship. Yeah. I was imagining like the manger scene you'd put on your lawn for Christmas with Jesus, but because it's of course the future, like everything has little like Jetson hoops that like make indicate that it's hovering, right? Like,
yeah.
But like also like none of the animals in the manger have legs. They just like kind of hover over.
Right?
And they're just everything's kind of drifting a little.
Yeah. And there's like there's like a robot nurse that's there that has performed a C-section on the Virgin Mary, and then just the baby Jesus is like popping out of her belly like
it's John Hurt is the Virgin Mary from Alien, and the baby Jesus bursts out of his chest.
Yeah. Jahan, tragically, when she awoke, she and her husband were informed that the fetus had been too malformed to survive and thus had been aborted. Very sad story. There's a wrinkle with the hospital's tale of events, however. Bene Gesserit training comes with a lot of benefits. One such benefit is near total control of her own body, extended beyond muscle systems into many systems thought of as automatic. She had, like I said before, they can control the sex of the baby. She had pretty deep knowledge of the child in her womb.
Like
and
from day one, too, apparently, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They have like it said like they have like perfect control of their body, right? That's how they can use their voice to take over, to command other people to do anything, basically.
Resist poisons.
Yeah. She knew that if it had been deformed, as they said, like she would have known. She would have absolutely known if it, had an extra arm or anything.
What
like
if she
that.
was just bad at drawing, and she was like, "No, I imagined the perfect child," but it was just it was like the haunts, like a crayon drawing from a toddler.
Yeah,
like when they animate what a crayon drawing of a horse would actually be.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's just a picture of Kurt Van Houten's dignity or whatever.
Yeah. You know what? These farmers being sus of an abortion, I totally get it, man.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Pete shook up all his beers before he started the podcast.
No,
That's why
I
he
did not.
keeps
This has been sitting on the floor
expletives.
for 45 minutes. Holy crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I like probably not the first woman that this has happened to, but probably one of the first women to undergo the Bene Gesserit training to become a priestess and then choose not to become a priestess, right? Instead choose to live a quote unquote civilian life, I guess.
Simple life, the farming life.
Yeah, the simple life with Zack and Cody was all about this.
Absolutely.
Honestly, it's all a retelling of Aesop's fable retelling of this.
Yep. And did
a
Dan
little
Schneider make that one too?
No, it was Dan Brown who made it. He did the Da Vinci Code, and then he did The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody,
Angels
which is a
and
retelling
Demons.
of the Butlerian Jihad.
Zacks and Cody's, yeah.
Angels and Demons, Zacks and Cody's. Angels and Demons and Jihads. It's all the same, really.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And is there other fantasy that goes the human route in the same way that Frank Herbert does? Like, does 40K have advanced AIs and stuff, or they're like, no,
they have
just
machine.
magic?
40K has machine spirits, so it's like spooky. There's like ghosts that live in machines, and you have to like the Adeptus Mechanicus like prays to machine spirits to like make the ships go into the warp, essentially.
Right. I have
40K.
a book like specifically about that I haven't read yet that I need to get into. Yeah.
It comes up pretty early in Rogue Trader. You essentially, because you become a rogue trader, you take over the ship of House von Valancius. But you have to like then coax the machine spirit who is serving this previous rogue trader into now recognizing you as like the new ruler of the ship, basically.
Right. I was like, we're kind of stretching a bit since Peter spilled beer everywhere and went offline, but
Yeah.
I'll keep talking about Dune stuff because I'm interested. But I think I heard about something called the Ixalan, which is one of the humans spread out really, really far. And one of the humans escaped the Butlerian Jihad and still kept going with like robots and stuff. And they were like way on the periphery and ended up making like these drones that could hear a heartbeat or hear like you're blinking, basically. So you completely couldn't hide from them. This is what what I'm assuming these folks are going to be afraid of. But like just robots got so big and scary on the periphery.
Yeah, I mean, we don't talk about it, and maybe we never will. But like, I believe you're referring to Ixians.
Ixian, that's right.
Ixalan is from Magic the Gathering. That's the vampire conquistador planet
Plane.
But Ixians, Ix is Komos in the far future, and it becomes a like super technological hub where they forget. I think I have it here somewhere. It becomes classed as supreme in machine culture eventually. Wow. So we're not going to get that far into the future. We're really going to talk about the Great Revolt, aka the Butlerian Jihad here. But eventually cool. They do go full circle where like they have because they escape the Butlerian Jihad, where like none of their technology gets destroyed because it starts from there. Nobody like looks back at it. They actually have like a good starting point to become a very technologically advanced planet and become one of the most advanced planets in the future.
Right, yeah. There's like I don't know if it came from like one of the side Dune books or something, but I was listening to a YouTube video where it's like talking about these humans, and then they're in underground hovels, and they can hear the machines coming, and it's just a complete sense of dread because they know they can do nothing but hide or run. Like if they run into it, they just lose. Yeah. And the fact that these things can like through a fucking burrow of dirt can like sense that you blink to your eye is so scary. Like there's just nowhere to hide. Like, oh my god. So that's what we're trying to avoid right now. I guess
I do believe X. I do think that is probably from one of the later books.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'm all burpy for my beer. I do believe it's from one of the books, and I do believe Ix
You're
plays
causing a lot of problems tonight.
pretty major role in the books later on, and in yeah, we won't spoil too much about what happens.
No. Yeah, that was just an aside. Now Peter's back, so we can get back on the main track. Yeah.
So you didn't vamp that whole time, eh?
You sure did.
Well,
So we're talking about Jahan, who has this, like, she knows that the fetus that was inside of her was healthy and would have been born fine and normal enough,
Right.
but the hospital sedated her and then aborted the baby, basically. Her training also gave her a pretty unassailable sense of righteousness. Again, she's like, I'm the fucking CIA. You can't tell me I'm not allowed in that door. She quickly used her husband's position.
CIA doesn't stand for child in your arms, does it?
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Because you got
I was
aborted.
really hoping we could blow past all the child to
Dumb
death.
bitch.
Glad we can't. She uses her husband's position as logistos to access the hospital's record archives to see, like, what the fuck happened here. There, she found that the hospital director had instituted a new policy, and that policy was one that not only saw Jahan's daughter aborted, but the children of many Comans. It seems like the Rishis have maybe implanted some sort of population control here. More than that,
is this against the Bene Gesserit in that case?
No, this is against the Comans. And so you weren't there for the vamping, but
No.
Jahan is maybe the first person, so almost certainly not the first person to have lost their child to the Rishis in this way, but maybe the first person who did the priestess training, didn't become a priestess, and then had a child that happened to be aborted as well. Like, so like the odds of them being found out, like, they hadn't been found out until now. But it only happened because the Rishis didn't plan for a Bene Gesserit, whom they didn't know the priestesses were Bene Gesserit. Right. They didn't plan for a Bene Gesserit to be the victim of this.
She did her own magic ultrasound and knew it was a healthy baby.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
for it to die, it made no sense.
Do your own research. Don't trust the CDC. That's what we're saying. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, if you're at home right now, grab some Vaseline, lube up your belly, and figure it out.
Figure it out.
Yeah. I think the Facebook Jihad is a good idea.
More than just that, there was something interesting about the hospital director. They were also the planet's first fully automated artificial intelligence, and had been placed there by the Rishis. So
I'm starting to see what's coming together.
See where this is going.
Why we left it up to a machine to decide who should live or die, and that causes a big ethical problem. So now there's going to be some pushback, I think.
Yeah. So like I said, like I think it's Lore Boys canon. I couldn't find any proof that this was population controlled by the Rishis. It seems pretty obvious to me that it would have been. But I'm gonna say Lore Boys canon. This is population controlled by the Rishis. They didn't plan on a Bene Gesserit being there and, like, being in that position to figure out their ruse, basically.
Yeah, I would find it odd that the Bene Gesserit didn't tell the Rishis if it was like an agricultural planet, unless it was like just like an agricultural setup between like Rishis and the grain planet, right?
But she's not even part of the Bene anymore. She went solo, right?
So, we don't know. So again, it's never said, but my Lore Boys canon is that she was told by the Bene Gesserit to go to a private life and not stay in as a priestess. So she's probably still serving the Bene Gesserit, if you ask me.
We're never really out of the game, right?
Who knows? Again, like, and we'll get into it in a little bit, but she does go against the Bene Gesserit in a pretty big way. But I didn't necessarily think we'd get there so quick, but like, I do think the Bene Gesserit, like, I don't know what their control of the Rishis is, but I can see Lore Wars canon, wild, crazy, put on your tinfoil hats, everybody. I can see that the Bene Gesserit wanted to kick off the Butlerian Jihad and wanted to get rid of AI because they could see AI supplanting them in many ways, right?
Yeah, of course, because they're like chemical control, and the voice would eventually be outdone by just like fucking robots with
Alexa.
Right?
Yeah, you can't hold a sewing needle next to fucking iRobot's neck and expect them to fucking comply.
Yeah, exactly. Like, now people have an app instead of you just have this plastic disc in your house where you go, vacuum the room, and it bounces off the walls and sucks up cat fur, right?
Yeah.
Like, sort of.
A Zune is immune to the Gom Jabbar.
So with all these glasses being more and more popular, like the Apple VR and like the Oculus 3 and all that stuff with like cameras on the front where you can see stuff. There's this there's this program that like if you're mopping or sweeping your floor, you can assign like your whole floor to be a color, so you know that you passed everywhere, because as you pass it, like it removes the colors. So you like can hit every spot on your floor, right? And of course I scroll down, it's like finally made a game for women. Like, oh
no.
The internet had to go in on that one hard. I would like that. I like that for knowing full completion.
I would like that for women, quote Jamie.
No, for me.
Jamie's like, hey, I read a super sexist thing online. Let me use my platform to amplify that joke.
It was funny. I thought it was funny.
When I was buying a robot vacuum and I had to replace my one that died, my own form of Butlerian Jihad was the one that was just like the ones that could map your entire place. Like my entire apartment could have been mapped for an extra like $30. And I was like, ain't no fucking way I'm putting my floor plan on the internet, dog. Give me the one with the lasers that just bounces into walls. I don't give a fuck.
It gets stuck under the sofa all the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'd be fine with a robot mapping my place. What are they going to do with that information?
Nothing.
I don't care.
It's the principle of it. I'm with Peter. It's just the principle. It's so stupid to be against it because, like, for sure, the blueprints from your old building are uploaded in an archive somewhere, and like that's already been trawled by the data robots. You know, so like, it's known. But I'm still against corporations. No corporation should be able to, because the thing is, Roomba sells that. And like, fuck them making money. I bought a product. You're not allowed to fucking make money off me now. Okay, I bought your product. I gave you money for it. The transaction ended. That's my thing. I'm like, stop fucking selling my data.
Fair.
I don't care if it's useless.
And for me, it was like the only people who need to know where my fucking couches are the people I invite over. Like,
and all the people on the internet from your backroom casting couch videos.
Well, that too, but that's an office.
Armed with this info, Jahan goes to the priestesses of Kubebe for their aid in moving against the Rashis overlords. So they're like, she says, hey, I've uncovered this plot of population control where they were boarding a bunch of Comans. At the same time that these overtures were being made to the priestesses, Jahan and Thetir had begun the formation of a secular organization. Using Thetir's administrative abilities and Jahan's gifts of rhetoric, amplified by her Bene Gesserit schooling, a front for the end of Coman exploitation was formed. The movement formed quickly. Aid from the priestesses came equally so. The feeling of all Comans, even the priestesses, had always been an uneasy acceptance of Rashis' rule, but with the evidence Jahan brought forward, likely aided by her Bene Gesserit training and oration, there was no doubt among many Comans, Rashis must go. Like, they're killing our babies. That's pretty easy to sell people on that ideology, I think. The coup on Komos itself was rather simple. The Rashis had no rumblings that revolt was brewing, and Thetir and Jahan proved to be tactical geniuses when combined. But conquering the spaceports was only the first step. Once they got to Rashis, they'd need to figure out the actual overthrowing of the government part there, right?
And no one knows how to drive, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's the classic, like, take me to Rashis. Like, okay. You're taking us the right way, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God. Look, I'm gonna be sick.
I was thinking of like grain-based terrorism, where you would secretly ship like tubes of dough, and then the trigger mechanism, instead of being like C4, would heat it up, and then the bread would expand and like open the door for
you. Just get a real good sourdough starter in there, and then some yeast goes in.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
The Comans were in, obviously, for more than they bargained for. They discovered that an autonomous AI hospital director was just the tip of the Rashis iceberg.
Sorry, for their weapons, have you guys ever cracked open like one of those croissant things from like Pillsbury Doughboy, where you open it and it just so they're just cracked.
It's like a pipe bomb.
Yeah.
You've got like the IRA putting Pillsbury Doughboys in like British guys' cars.
Just two Rashis standing on a starship, like talking to each other, and you just hear like the like it's sliding across the floor, like doughboy.
And yeah, but instead of like a fiery explosion, it's just all that like the unbaked white
Just
croissant dough. Just like
slams a guy in the face. He suffocates. Like,
I didn't expect warfare to be so like lightly buttery and flaky. This is nice.
Yeah, the Pillsbury Doughboy is a symbol of the Jihad.
almost every aspect of life on their ruling planet, the planet of Rashis, was controlled by machines. Where Rashis ruled Komos, artificial intelligence in turn ruled the Rashis. Even their emotional and intellectual characteristics had been altered over centuries by the machines. For the Komans, backwater farmers who had been deliberately made into semi-Luddites, the world of Rashis was as alien as everything. Fair to say they probably experienced some culture shock. Many Komans, after leaving Rashis and going on to kill all computers in the galaxy, said that they didn't believe what had happened on Rashis. So it was bad over there. The Komans sought out the engineers and scientists behind maintaining the machines and interrogated them. One and all, they seemed willing, believing that the vision... one and all, the scientists and engineers seemed willing to let the AIs control their lives and the lives of the Rashis, believing that the vision the machines had for the people of Rashis was in their best interest. The Komans obviously were not convinced. They're like, this is really fucked up, guys.
That's kind of how techno-futurists these days, like all the cringe ones that we think of now is just like, you can write boobies on a calculator, so it might as well just be the government. Is kind of like,
well, wait, put it like that.
I didn't get that jump in logic at all.
Well, there was no jump in logic of what Peter is saying.
Them, right?
Oh, okay.
And they're like, well, no, this is actually fine. Which is how like absolute fucking morons like Elon Musk feel, right?
The thing is, it only says boobies when you turn it upside down. So we got to turn all our computers and our AIs upside down. Then we get boobies.
Hell yeah.
You're right.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, like the Pope.
Stacked. Principal among those interrogated was Dr. G. Demlin, who was questioned by the chief priestess of Komos, Urania. I have a quote for you guys. Demlin was an especially arrogant and unrepentant man, whose disdain for his fellow man's intelligence was equaled only by his respect for his own, and that of his machines. As his quite prideful and voluntary description of his work on Rashis droned on, Urania's feelings overcame her training and her face began to betray her revulsion. Ultimately, even Demlin noticed and interrupted his stream of self-congratulatory candor to ask what was upsetting her. Urania told him his work violated fundamental principles of respect for human life, not to mention the offense to the worship of the goddess. At the mention of the goddess, Demlin exploded in a fit of honest and acid outrage, and in his fury, after suggesting that there was more worth reverence in one of his machines than in the worship of a supposed goddesses invented by a clutch of bucolic bumpkins on a pigsty of a planet, Demlin turned toward the icon of Kubebe as if to spit on it. Before he could commit the act, Urania had killed him with her ceremonial knife. Girl boss, slay. Literally. So the priestesses pretty much declared jihad right after that against the thinking machines and all who find their gods within them. This guy just insulted them too bad. They had landed on this planet. We'll talk a little bit more about the capture of Rashis. I think I have it later on. But basically, like, they land on the planet. They are in a good position to like take over the planet, which again, we'll talk about it later. They start interviewing people to be like, what's going on here? Why you guys love Alexa so much? Why Cortana?
Like fucking man on the street, just like the little like wireless mic YouTube shit.
Exactly. And this one guy is like, well, what are we supposed to do? Worship your stupid fucking goddess? And they're like, that's not cool. We're gonna kill you and all the machines and everyone who likes machines. And this crusade would have much farther reaching implications than in just the Eridani A system, but more on that after the break. Are we good? Lore Boy's here, about to set out and commit unforgivable atrocity in the name of religious persecution.
Finally.
Honestly, we've been building up to it for a while.
Exactly. Guys, you're all implicated. I just want to... Every single one of you listening right now.
Yeah, honestly, if you've ever downloaded this podcast, even not listened to it, you're complicit in everything we do.
Oops.
So when they're declaring war on like machines and stuff, they're declaring war on anything that imitates the mind of a human. Like that's why shields are still cool, because shields aren't doing them dumb thinking.
Thinking machines is specifically what they said
right.
they were engaging jihad against. But yeah, exactly. They're not against technology. They're against AI. Like they're against ChatGPT.
And I think Herbert uses those words, something like in the image of a human mind or something like that. It's like you're not supposed to try and imitate human thinking through but
it was also
like,
robots. I think it's like the 60s, so I don't know if he had a calculator, right?
Yeah, definitely not.
They took up the size of a room.
When did that thing? Yeah, exactly. It's just like, oh yeah, you want to get lazy and add 2 + 6, and then it spits out 100 cards, and you're just like,
yeah,
it was 8. I just didn't want to do it.
We talked about the moon landing the last time. I think we compared it. Like people hadn't even got to the moon yet. Like in the first couple of books, it was only after he'd written a bit that they got to the moon with the equivalent of an N64 with an expansion pack in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, just remember like the like ooh fucking gotcha was the fact that like the Soviets used a pencil to write upside down.
Yeah. Right? Instead of the space pen. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
I mean, okay. You're gonna say that they were first in space, first man in space, first animal in space, first satellite, first orbit of the moon. And then the USA like chooses an arbitrary finish line when they achieve it first and go woo USA.
I don't know the first Russian in space. I know the first Russian dog was named Laika.
Yeah.
We don't know the first Russian, but we know the first Russian.
A real one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure some man also died on re-entry, but dog sad.
Yeah. We're talking the Butlerian Jihad, also known as the Great Revolt sometimes, but we'll be using the name Butlerian Jihad because it's fun to say more than anything, and also because it's named after Jahan Butler, who started it. Right? Here's a quote for you guys. Far from eager for this, Jahan argued against it. Her statements, insofar as we can construct them, seem to have anticipated much of what was to happen in the coming years. The growing ruthlessness of the Crusaders, the atrocities, the deaths of so many innocents. But the priestesses were not deterred. It was not that they did not believe that these things might happen. Rather, they resolved on the jihad in spite of this belief. Their horror before the discoveries of Rashis and the certainty that they would be duplicated on other planets, their deep-rooted outrage at the insult to their goddess and their religion, these made their minds firm. Too many analyses on the origins of the jihad have ignored this motivation. The people of Komos believed their religion. So too did Jahan, but her beliefs were tempered with mercy and foresight to a degree not true of the priestesses. So it's named after her, but she did not think that going on the jihad to wipe out all AI was the right move, because she knew that innocents would die in the course of it.
I mean, this is also a classic because that is also like Paul Atreides, even in like the films we just watched, talks about that all the time. He's just like, honestly, everything I do is just to prevent 1 billion deaths. And he has when he first hits the spice, he sees like visions of 1 billion deaths. He's like, that can't fucking be, sort of thing.
It happens a lot in the book where he talks about like, I have seen the future, and like if I don't go on this crusade, more will die. Like people will die on this crusade, but more will die if I don't go on this crusade.
That's why his grandson turns into a worm and like goes on the golden path when he becomes like exceptionally psychic or something. Sorry, Jamie, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, that's way down the line, but like I think the Atreides, that's why they're kind of seen as the good guys. Like Leto, like the movie opens up with him saving 10 guys' lives from a worm when he easily could have just like gotten out and gotten the payday from the spice. And it's like him and Paul actually care about life, which goes far, and that's why they win over the Fremen more so than like the Harkonnens, who are clearly the bad guys. Even though, like, probably in reality, those house conflicts have a lot more. We're both the bad guys. They definitely frame it.
I mean, like being assigned to just be like the good slave master, which the Atreides were, is not like necessarily the best thing. But the fact that he does roll up, like, and like what's his name? Leto Atreides, it like is the good king. I guess, right? Because he's just like he wants like a good relationship, and he talks to
well, he goes there to save lives, not to make money, and that's the big difference. Like Harkonnen just want to make money,
Yeah.
And apparently, like Atreides and Harkonnen, they have a super long history. Like way back, way when one of the Harkonnens got called into like trial by combat by one of the Atreides and got killed or something like that. I forget the exact details, but
Well, the movie also is like, whatever, Baron Harkonnen is like Paul's grandfather.
Yeah, I was going to interject with two things. One, I promised people that there'd be no Dune talk on this Dune episode.
Sorry.
And two, that Jessica is a Harkonnen. Jessica Atreides is born Harkonnen. So
yeah, by force, right? Like
like Baron Vladimir Harkonnen is her father. So
yeah. But there was like something that set it off.
There's a lot of history between those two houses.
Yeah, definitely.
But we're 10,000 years in the past right now. So let's live there for a little bit. Jahan had plenty of reason to feel squeamish at the prospect of jihad. The Comans had executed a flawless coup. They had managed to sneak aboard space vessels collecting tributes, had overtaken the Rashid space fleets with a surprise attack, and now had millions of soldiers on the home planet of an unsuspecting enemy. They were in the perfect position to force a surrender of the Rashid people. Despite, overwhelming army sizes, all this stuff, like they had won. They were in a position to just say, like, lay down your arms, like army, and surrender, and we'll take over from here. The sheer culture shock of seeing how the Rashis lived, coupled with their insult, to their religious idols, ensured that no peaceful surrender would happen. Instead, the Rashis people were all but obliterated. So the comments say, like, not cool. What you tried to spin on my statue? We're gonna kill you all.
That's funny. They come in and there's like one of those like what are the Rashid? They're like in there with their VR goggles and their sex robot, and they're like, "This is how you live."
They basically invaded the planet of the Goon Cave, and they were just like, "No, it's holy war."
Yeah, exactly. Shoot them before they even take their VR headset off.
Exactly. They don't even notice. It's just like a slow stab into their into each of them. They're just like one at a time going through.
The slow goon pierces the shield.
Yeah, and you busted that moment to go into the afterlife,
like right through the quest 3, right through the middle.
Yeah. So again, Jean is doubtful, right? That this is the right move. Despite her misgivings, she would remain the figurehead of the movement, and she went along with it. Her and her husband would lend their tactical and organizational brilliance, and for the most part, Jahan believed in the end, if not always the means. So she's going along with it. She believes that she can, much like Paul Muad'Dib, can probably save lives by leading this thing rather than letting somebody else, like the priestesses, lead it, right?
I can fix the holy war, I think, is the thesis of the Dune saga, right?
A holy war is just a goth girlfriend for countries. Once they had left the system.
Oh man, that's SEO bait right there.
Once they had left the system, the movement found traction. It was not entirely novel to the rest of the galaxy, this idea. There was a shadowy figure from nearly 500 years prior named Dolden, who had founded a group known as Humanity First, a collective dedicated to weaning humanity off of reliance on technology. Some planets had even had pogroms, which saw the local eradication of artificial intelligences well before the birth of Jahan Butler. So she's not the first person, or the Comans are the first people in the galaxy to believe in this. But the universe had not seen a revolt against the machines on this scale until now. And a lot of people are kind of whipped up into the fervor. So it's not just the Comans who are now crusading. A lot of people like see what they're doing and say, yeah, you know what? You're right. The Goon Cave was a mistake.
I can write boobies without a calculator, actually.
Yeah.
Prove it to me. Show me right now. Take this calculator. Show me.
Snaps it in half.
Yeah. The Bene Gesserit control the boobies, really.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
The booby chest.
Write boobies on this calculator. He's like, boobies! And she just falls over.
They have such control of their bodies, they know they don't even need bras anymore. They can just hold their boobies up in perfect globes.
I mean, they could, though, right? Like, if we're talking real,
let's be real. Yes, Lore Boys canon, they absolutely could.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when the Comans appeared in the galaxy preaching good word, they found those willing to follow them. Religious and ideological fervor was whipped up for most, and for some, they just saw the opportunity for plunder and a quick buck or two as these, forces basically go destroy all the technology, descend on the planet, rip out all the copper wire, and then leave, right?
Yeah.
With Jihad at the helm, at least she was able to minimize casualties and prevent what happened on Rashis from happening again. The plan was usually quite simple: surround planets and blockade them with a show of force until they capitulated and allowed the Jihad to destroy any intelligence machines. So that's their plan. Surround the planet, or go to a system, drive all the ships and army in that system back to a single planet, blockade that planet, siege them until they basically cried uncle, and then rip out all the copper wire. Descend on the planet, rip out all the copper wire.
Right.
Okay. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So that was the systematic approach Jihad ordered for the first 2 decades of the campaign while she was leading it. So for 20 years, she's fighting this good fight. Until the Jihad found itself closing on the planet Carthagos. Carthagos, maybe? I have no idea if there's a parallel to Carthage. I know nothing about Carthage, except they
Produced
Hannibal
Yeah.
crossed the Alps with elephants. That's all I know. I watched the oversimplified video or the first 2 oversimplified videos on Hannibal. That's it. The plan was the same for Carthagos as it had been many times before. And Jihad's flagship, the Sarah III, named after her unborn daughter, was driving the forces back towards the planet, forcing them to abandon their forward lunar outposts while leaving a path of retreat to the planet open. So they got their moon bases, drive them out of their moon bases back to the planet, leave a path of retreat to the planet. So you don't have to kill them. They're like, oh, we have an open avenue to escape. We're being overwhelmed. We're going to go back we're going to go home, basically.
It's like called a civilian corridor, I think is like the official term of it, right? Where it's like the safe passage for people.
Yeah, it's specifically not for civilians. It is for like armed forces. I mean, for civilians as well, but they're also leaving it open for like armed forces that don't want to fight. You have a path of retreat to retreat your army, which is, a planet which is going to be sieged.
We're talking about all this like religion and stuff. What does your shirt say?
It's got a picture of a teddy bear in a cowboy outfit, and it says, "God grant me the serenity to accept the vibes that aren't rootin' tootin'."
Oh, now I understand
Love
why you
that.
wanted me to make that spider, duckling, and
Oh, the same style of the same style.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
discord.gg/loreboys. Keep it peeled. I got some t-shirts to do in a little couple of weeks here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And God grant us the serenity to accept the vibes that aren't rootin' tootin'.
Yeah.
I am. Oh, I do my best to be rootin' tootin'. Also, my cat scared the shit out of me recently.
AI,
I thought it
not
was an
rootin'.
owl.
AI not rootin' tootin'.
Not rootin'.
No. 2 thumbs
Yeah.
way down.
Yeah.
So once the Carthaginians were isolated on their planet, the siege was inevitable, and we would have had the same result as every other planet for the last 2 decades.
We got all the copper wire out.
Yeah, get all the copper wire out. No more computers. No more booby machines.
Okay.
Unfortunately, one perfectly placed mine would alter the tide of history. It connected
did she blow her legs off?
It connected with Jihad's flagship and destroyed it, killing the leader of the Jihad after over 20 years of crusade against intelligence machines.
Looks like Sarah 3 got aborted twice.
I mean, probably 4 times if it's called the Sarah 3.
Right? Yeah, good play.
Also, I want to apologize for assuming that a woman would step on a mine in a sci-fi universe 30,000 years in the future. It's obviously the space equivalent of like a magnetic sea mine.
Yeah, it's a sea
Right?
mine. Exactly, yeah. That's no moon. So she
That's
blows
no Sarah.
that's no unborn fetus. So her flagship gets destroyed. She is killed. Upon learning of the death of their leader, a wave of rage overtook the fleet surrounding Carthagos. They unleashed their arsenal on the planet from orbit, annihilating all life, inorganic or otherwise. With Carthagos, Jihad's time in the Butlerian Crusade would be bookmarked by echoes, a slaughter on Rashis and a slaughter here. Her technical genius would be undone at Carthagos. Despite the fact that Thether, her husband, survived her, the spirit of peaceful capitulation was gone from the Crusaders. Now it is just kill them all.
Time for real war, baby.
Exactly.
That's what we're signed up for.
A quote here for you guys. When Jihad died in 182 BG, the cause did not so much lose a leader as it gained a martyr. The generals who continued in her name were moved by a zeal she herself could not have matched. She knew her own fears and weaknesses, defects that were forgotten by her worshippers. So she does kind of become this like she was always an unwilling figurehead, and she becomes more so now than ever in death, I guess.
Right. It's funny. I watched a video today by Alt Shift X, which was like a 2-minute like top 10 silliest things ever written in Dune, which was one where like Leto the Second Atreides, who's like God Emperor Word Man, who says like, "Boy, we're in love because we both love yogurt." When Jamie said, again, I've forgotten at this point. I wished that your quote by Frank Herbert in 1955 was exactly what Jamie said. Like, time for war, baby. Frank Herbert.
R.I.P. to a real one. Yeah. He really knew how to write them. Lay down those bars.
I love yogurt. Quote, war man from 30,000 years in the future.
I don't know. Like, you guys, we were kind of talking about like all that stuff. You guys have watched clearly more future Dune lore than me, because I have no idea what the fuck you guys are.
I'm just plugged into YouTube shit, right?
I do know. Like,
I'm going to get into the encyclopedia when I cover the Bene Gesserit as soon as I can. But yeah,
I do know Paul's son, who I believe is Leto II, goes on to become God Emperor, like you said. But that's all I know, and I only know because I'm like, oh, there's another thing that 40K just like co-opted for their own thing, right?
Yeah. The crazy thing about the books too, or like the movie's adaptation to the books, is we're not going to get anywhere near all that stuff. If the original trilogy, we're just going to get through the first book, and there's like
a
6
lot books that he wrote himself. Like, fucking God Emperor of Dune is the 4th one.
Yeah,
or something.
And I do think like reception is pretty mixed after like the first couple of books too. I've only read the first book, and like you say, like everything from the movies I am aware of.
I was talking to someone yesterday, and it's like Dune follows pretty much the same story and timeline the first 4 books, and then on the 5th book, it just like jumps to the way future, I think it is.
Okay.
And it like all changes. I was talking to Luis's friend Tyler yesterday, and he's like, I read the first 4, super into it, started the 5th. I was so lost. I just never kept up with it anymore.
Yeah, like Chapter House is about like the Bene Gesserit planet where they've like cloned people. That's not relevant.
Anyways,
at this point. Yeah,
I don't know. Jamie's friend says the 5th book is bad, so stop at 4.
Well, it's different. It's different. If you're expecting,
Jamie's friend says the 5th book is different, so be aware of that when you're reading it.
I think Chapter House is a very good name for a planet of nuns. Is my thing.
Pretty good. That would be a 40K thing as well. Like they would call something in the Chapter House.
No shit. This thing written, I assume, before 40K.
Our mod David just gave me Steam keys to give away. Let's go.
Live on air.
Yeah, he wanted in on the episode. I gave him what he wanted.
So with Jihad gone, the Jihad continued with rampant ferocity.
Jihad.
Yeah, Jihad. But it was not necessarily a unified front. An historical record shows that in any given campaign, a large portion of the fighters were mercenaries recruited on the last planet any particular fleet had conquered. Again, some people are just here to pull up the copper wire. It seems like it becomes more and more that after Jihad dies. Like it seems like it becomes more of just like the PMCs are here to make a buck, you know?
Well, you can't guarantee that all your guys are going to survive any kind of thing. So like leapfrogging planets does
absolutely
make sense, right?
That's it, yeah. And finding the believers on that planet who believe in your cause and are willing to at least fight for it.
Unless you had spice and you could save scum. I'm just thinking actually now, if you master spice in the same way you master interstellar travel, where you're like seeing the planets 10 seconds before they happen, why couldn't you just be the most elite fucking war commander ever and see things happen before? Maybe that does happen in Paul Atreides.
I mean, we're BG. We're only like 2 centuries, right?
Yeah.
We're so close.
Yeah.
I have a quote for you guys. The Butlerian Jihad was not a monolithic campaign that swept irresistibly through the human galaxy. On the contrary, it was the composite of thousands upon thousands of separate forces lasting almost a century. To conceive of the Jihad, one should not think of the Imperial Army or Paul's Fremen, but rather of pirate fleets, moving when and where their commanders will, with little in common but the name of Jahan Butler and a hatred for the machines they could neither understand nor replace. Many, many times on the planet Wencoli, for instance, local resistance was absent, yet the planet was devastated by fighting between 2 groups of crusaders, each bent on proving the purity of their faith by the magnitude of their cruelty. More religious persecution from old Mr. Herbert here, huh?
Couldn't control all your fundamentalists. Sorry.
Yeah, but you measure your success by suffering, and that's what you call belief. Your belief system. How could you believe in that? Why don't you just believe in sand and worms, you idiot?
Dumbass idiots. God.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, just another commentary on religion from Herbert. I think. I don't think he's wrong. I fully agree with him.
Schism with the Protestants and the Catholics of just like, or
I mean,
even,
the Christian
Martin
Crusades.
Luther.
Like, there's plenty of real life examples of exactly what he's writing in his fiction. Of like, humans do this. We know we do this.
There's holy wars going on right now on Earth. Yeah.
I don't want to alarm you. Sometimes guys don't agree, and you're like, "Oh fuck, dude, let's go."
Shit, bro. The first 4 books are so good. Simply put, the jihad could not have happened with Jahan, and it fell to pitying depths without her leadership. Her personality had such a strong impact on people that many said they could feel it physically. People recalled meeting her for the first time, leaving them with the sensation of being struck. Here's a quote. The emotions produced in others were not those associated with fear, however. The words most often used to describe her presence asserted a combination of compassion and intelligence so great as to produce what one observer, in a phrase later known to billions, saw as a living flame of a woman. But this was not fire as the devourer, it was flame as the beacon, a guide. This flame led the crusade for 20 years. When it died, the jihad became the flame itself, and this would be the fire of destruction.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, she was a special lady. She got a jihad named after herself. That doesn't just happen to anybody. And even among the Bene Gesserit, like I was saying earlier, she was special. None before her, none until Jessica Atreides, had defied the order so thoroughly, yet been so successful.
True, yeah, that is a fucking huge, from what I understand of the timeline. That's a big gap.
Huge gap, yeah.
Yeah.
So twice in the history of the order, and I'll call it now. We will do a Bene Gesserit episode. Like, the Bene Gesserit are a pre-Earth history, like, secret order. They are very much the Illuminati in that, like, they outdate history. Like, if you go back to the 20,000 years to early Terra, it starts with like civilization starts in Mesopotamia. The Bene Gesserit were around already. They're absolutely the Assassin from Assassin's Creed or whatever. Like, they've always been around.
The Isu, like the ancient aliens, basically.
Yeah.
I don't fucking know.
There's like a Bene Gesserit sitting next to a T-Rex, just whispering in his ear. And then the T-Rex runs and goes and attacks another dinosaur.
Exactly. What's in the box? Stegosaurus, and he's like. With his tiny arm.
Stick your head in the box, like he can't do it.
He can't reach. He has to go all the way, lay on his side just so he can put his other arm in.
So twice in the history of the order, the severest strictures of the Bene
I do just need to toss in Kwisatz Haderach very quickly there as the dinosaur with his hand.
Everyone at home, please clap for Peter.
Thank you. Sorry.
Twice in the history of the order, the severest strictures of the Bene Gesserit had been violated by one of their own sisterhood. I have another quote for you. Both of these women, for the most intensive personal reasons, defied their order, the Bene Gesserit. To please her duke, out of her love for him, Jessica bore a son rather than the daughter that had been enjoined. Out of her grief for her dead daughter, Jahan embarked upon a rebellion which she proposed to lead. This violated one of the most ancient of Bene Gesserit prescriptions, that against the public involvement of their members as social leaders of any sort. The dangers of exposure of the order under these circumstances were manifest, yet Jahan persisted. After Rashis, with the launching of a jihad, the exposure of the order became a virtual certainty, but by then all the priestesses of Komos were involved also. So, as I kind of mentioned earlier, like, the Bene Gesserit are forbidden from being social leaders at all. And again, it's just, they don't, like, it's too much heat for them, basically. So they always marry important figures. I will say, crazy Lore Boys canon. I really want to get off the topic of sexism because you guys love it a little bit too much for me. But like, I can see like the Bene Gesserit being the ones to perpetrate and propagate sexism in the galaxy, so that it's always a man in charge of an important house or important, seat of power that they can have a woman, the traditional family structure, marry into, right? Like,
I mean, I would see it as like a much more, it's like, despite my absolute adoration of sexism,
Unadulterated. What was it?
I very much thought it would be like a phenomenal way to not get caught is to just always be the assistant manager, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's such a good idea that I was just like, oh, like, to their credit, right? It's like, no, if you just, I only comparing it to like real world stuff is just like, if you just lobby, you can get politicians to do anything you want. They're fucking idiots. And you know who's stupider than somebody who was elected in like Missouri?
Is the people voting for him?
An inbred king on a wheat planet is like way more like it's way better, right?
And imagine you're a woman with the power of a sports bra without needing a sports bra. You know what I mean?
Pretty cool.
You can just control your boobies.
Exactly. The most powerful woman on earth, right?
That'd be so cool. Dude, I wonder, you could do so many things if you could control your boobies fully. You can make like little...
I mean, me too, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind it. Like,
dude,
imagine you never had to worry about, like when you're...
remembering a lobster bib when you go to a restaurant. You could just shape your boobies into one of those little...
just nice little cup.
Oh, yeah. Like the rubber baby bib.
Nice little concave,
yeah.
Catches the peas.
That's right.
You would never have your nuts stick to your leg again. You know what I mean?
Oh, man.
It's not a thing.
If they perfectly hovered and dodged...
past.
Oh, it's like as if your nuts were positively charged and just your thighs were... also positively charged, right? And then just like they're like, whoa.
You ever see that guy? It's like an old man, and he's just like sitting down, and there's like a row of chairs, and he sits down and immediately goes because he sat on his nuts.
We can avoid that.
Probably.
Yeah.
We can avoid that. Yeah. Anyways, I'll send you guys the nut shot later. But
yeah, it's one of those things. Like Joseph Salk, thanks for the polio vaccine. Where's the swamp ass vaccine? Am I right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I think it's called baby powder.
Where are my magnetic balls?
That sounds like a liberal cure.
The liberals with them damn baby powder on their fucking dry asses.
What the fucking CDC tell you to put baby powder on your nutsacks?
Liberals got them chalky balls, dude.
That's true.
Oh, by the way, there's a GIF in our chat of a man sitting on his balls, just for your enjoyment. But yeah.
Very violent.
His reaction is intense.
Okay, well, for the patron listeners, there's no episode art this week, but we will post that. We will repost that one GIF for your enjoyment.
Absolutely, of the nuts it. Yeah, I think it's like more of a cross leg situation. I didn't realize.
Yeah, and it's much more understandable that he crosses his legs opposed to just sit down.
Yeah.
So I mean, the jihad continues. As we know, it is the kind of in-universe explanation for why like you don't just have a machine that solves all the problems, which I think is. I'll give Herbert the benefit of the doubt. That's like an insane amount of foresight as a writer to be like, it's like the 1960s. Like nobody owns a calculator because it's the size of a warehouse. And for him to be like, well, eventually machines will just solve all problems for people. So I need to write them out of the story before I tell my space opera.
Yeah. I found it really, really interesting just thinking of like how Dune got popular so recently, and it kind of coincides with AI taking off and being like the buzzword in every business ever. And then all of a sudden there's like a groupthink interest to Dune. Well, it's because they're making the movie, of course. Yeah, exactly. But the timing is really interesting that where we banish AI and also AI is taking off in our life. So yeah, I thought that was cool. But
I mean, we know from if the listener. Listen to our last episode, it ends with the destruction of Holtzman. Is the end of the jihad, the end of intelligent machines. So as far as we can tell, I'll say like the galaxy is a big place. There's probably like an AI squirreled away somewhere that somebody's like some planet's using for their own gain. But to all intents and purposes,
the Ix, whatever we call, like they are that, I think. The Ixians, they have more advanced shit and they hide in the periphery of space. Yeah.
Pete, why do you look so confused? We talked about this. That's while you were cleaning up beer. That's while you were cleaning up beer. We had a whole conversation about them, but you missed it.
Okay.
You missed it. Sorry, buddy. I don't know what to tell you. I have a final quote to finish us and the jihad off. With Jahan gone, the jihad
Inshallah, America will be defeated.
Yeah, exactly.
Treaty's nuts. Are we just saying things that are fun?
Pete, you got a weird sneeze. Bazinga. With Jihad gone, the Jihad had no higher objective than the destruction of the computers. It was successful beyond expectation in that aim, and the movement dwindled as it found fewer and fewer targets for its wrath. In its wake, it left both poverty and opportunity. It burned a hatred and fear of thinking machines so deeply into the human psyche that one wonders if that wound has yet to completely heal. Yet at the same time, there is no denying that all the expansions of individuals in society that followed, the mental training, the spacing guild, the empire itself, was made not just possible, but necessary by the Jihad. To weigh the gains against the losses, the newfound talents and resources against the suffering that preceded them demands a scale that has not yet been invented.
Cool.
This Dune lore. That's
very awesome.
Butlerian Jihad. I hope you enjoyed listening. If you did, consider leaving us a 5-star rating and review and telling all your friends and family and mailmen. Stop a person enjoying the next total solar eclipse and just tell them about the lore boys. Talk a freaking ear off about it, honestly.
Isn't it? I do like getting rid of the AI and believing in humans to be able to reach that level, because like, will humans ever be as fast as a calculator at writing boobies upside down?
I thought you were gonna stop with, will they ever be as fast as a calculator? I was gonna say I could run very fast. I think I could outrun a calculator.
Yeah. But it's cool, man, to have that belief that we could evolve to a level. Like, we are right at that fucking curve where technology blasts off right now, and to be able to catch up.
I think a speed cuber, like the guys who do the Rubik's cubes really fast, could probably type boobies on a calculator faster than a computer could type boobies.
Okay,
itself.
Fair.
You know what I mean?
Fair.
They're very fast.
I didn't
realize they were called speed cubers.
I don't know if they are. That's what I'm calling them.
Oh, okay.
I think they are. That's a good name for them, right?
Cannon.
I think it's an inspiring message.
It's probably what they're called.
I think it's an inspiring message, and I love that idea that maybe we could be as fast as calculators one day, or we could up our processing speed somehow just through sheer will and all that stuff. I think it's very exciting and cool.
Yeah, I think a really inspiring message is do drugs and overthrow the government.
Okay,
that's another one from Dune, and I'm going to say that's my inspiring message from
honestly. Yeah. If we just do drugs enough, and then eventually you'll be better than a computer.
That's what I believe.
But also do drugs and overthrow the government, and then just stop the drugs though before you become the worst government, which I think is the next movie coming out, right?
Right. And spit in people's mouths because water is valuable.
That's also good. That's also an inspiring message.
Yeah, it makes me horny also.
Yeah.
If you want to get in touch with us, Jamie, you want to talk about the Discord?
Discord.gg/loreboys. That's where all the fun stuff's going on. We were all today. The hot topic was the eclipse, so a lot of stuff going on there. People posting food they make, the pets they have. If you like some of the art that you've seen, you can ask Pete to put it onto a t-shirt on our website. There's tons of stuff there, and even more if you are a Prime subscriber on Patreon. There's some secret chats, and you get to be part of some other games and stuff. And also, if you want to hang out, a lot of those patrons, we have a solid 6 people who are there every time. Come to my stream, twitch.tv/loreboyjames. They started calling me LBJ. Loreboy James, I guess. In that
Lyndon
stuff.
B. Johnson.
Yeah, Lyndon B. Johnson. So come play some games with us.
You apparently had a huge hog, so you have more than one thing in common with him.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
The initials and being a public figure, I guess.
Right now we're at 90 followers and 111 subs. So just come drop a follow and you'll catch a sub by accident. So just come to Loreboy James on Twitch, and lots of good community stuff happening in both of those places. That's it for me.
Peter, you want to talk about Instagram?
At Loreboys Podcast on Instagram. Keep it glued for updates on everything there. Also, as far as the merch goes, this is more of a PSA just for people who want certain things. We have no control over what is supplied. So if you want to request something, you may not get exactly what you want, but we will do our best to provide.
Yeah, we can put the art on a thing as long as there's not too many layers and it makes it confusing for Pete. But
it's not.
I feel like I could fix that problem.
We could talk about that.
No, it's more the big square being printed onto it. Anyway, okay. It's more the big square. It's I just wanted to let people know. It's just if you want a hat, can't help you. But if you want a t-shirt or something, also all the Disney shit is free. Just fucking DM me because I'll take it down.
Stop bugging Pete, for banana hammocks. We can't. We've emailed them 1,000 times. They refuse to do it. And just for us, they do banana hammocks for everyone else. But
they
Pete,
won't make them small enough for us.
Yeah, exactly. Or cube shaped, or cubed enough for us.
Yeah,
it's just a little plug.
Jamie plugged the Patreon. I don't know if I said it at the beginning. I think Jamie's credited Saucy with the correction on Axolotl Tanks. I think it was Handolo. I only accept corrections from patrons. So if you want to correct me on something wrong that I said, because I know I said wrong things this episode, Saucy did come in to contribute. You don't have to look it up. Yeah, Saucy did chime in after, but Handolo, I think, was the first one to say.
Okay, cool.
I only accept corrections from patrons. So if you are frothing, seething at the mouth right now with all the wrong shit that I said this episode, because I'm sure I did, you better fucking sub if you want to correct me, because otherwise I'm gonna ignore you. So you can go to Patreon, like Jamie said, patreon.com/theloreboys. And if you don't trust Patreon, we do, of course, have Lore Boys Prime. We are kind of creating our own inspiring message of belief in the Goon Cave and the spirit and power of the Goon Cave. So we're creating our own here at Lore Boys HQ, obviously. We need people to send us their sex robots. We need people to send us their VR kits. I plan on winning 7 at a time.
I was kind of hoping we could split the difference and make just more of an analog Goon Cave where, like, there's someone running a bicycle next to a projector.
3 guys jacking each other off? I don't fucking think so, Jamie. That would never work.
It's 3 guys each operating their own Rube Goldberg-esque machine to jack each other off. So, Pete, you will put down like 2 pieces of toast, and when those pop up, they will knock over a marble, which will send a spring tumbling, which will then jack me off, essentially.
Okay. Oh, I thought we were, and there's like some sort of like porno thing to it too. It's like the toast goes, the marble goes down, and it like pulls a lady's shirt off. And she goes,
The toast, much like a vision from God with Jesus burned onto it, will have a woman doing the ahagao face burned onto it when it pops up, essentially.
Is that how it's pronounced? I've always wondered.
I don't know.
I've never seen it right.
Once again, I think so.
Which I think is like a garlic sauce.
Tomato Asiago, dried tomato.
So to finish our Goon Cave from you guys, the Prime listeners, to subscribe to Prime, all we need you to do is send us your Asiago faces. Eat a whole bunch of Asiago. We're creating a new challenge, not the cinnamon challenge. Eat an entire tablespoon of Asiago and send us your reaction to that.
We're not boomers. Our generation eats Asiago.
Yeah. And if it's not safe and poison, then I didn't tell you to do that legally. Okay. So I think that would constitute a Lore Boys.
Lore Boys.
Lore Boys.
Nope.
Bye.